Hello everybody, this is Pastor Green. We're doing another Bible study, 2 Samuel chapter 2. If you'd like me to come speak at your church, or if you have any questions, you can always email me if you want me to come to your church, or you can just comment below if you have any questions. We're going to start the study on 2 Samuel chapter 2 verse 1, and I'm going to warn you ahead of time, there's a lot of very big, difficult words here, so I'm probably going to mess up a lot, so just forgive me. 2 Samuel 2 verse 1. And it came to pass after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up to these cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go up? And he said, Unto Hebron. So David went up thither, and his two wives, also Ahinoam the Jezreelite, and Abigail, Nabal's wife of the Carmelite. And his men that went with him did David bring up, and every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they took David, saying that the men of Jezreel were there, and they buried Saul. And David sent messengers out of the men of Jezreel, and he said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, that have showed the kindness unto your Lord even to Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord showed kindness and truth unto you, and also requite you this kindness, because you have done this thing. Therefore let not your hand be strengthened, and be ye vigilant. For your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. So this particular town said, We recognize you were anointed king before Saul died, and you still treated Saul very nicely. You buried him. You were very, respectful to him. So we're going to honor you as king. They said, You're the rightful king. We're going to go ahead and let you be king. But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and made him king over Gilead, and over the Ezrahites, and over the Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all of Israel. So this guy Abner, he said, Oh, Saul's now gone. I was part of Saul's army, so we can't let David take over. We need to be the ones taking over. Well, obviously now there's supposed to be two kings. Why do you think they did this for? They wanted money. They wanted to keep Saul's money. They didn't want David to have it. That happens a lot in the world. People want money, so they take over another area, and they say, Oh, I'm the king, when really they're not. So 1 Timothy 6 says, For the love of money is the root of all evil, which will also conveyed after they have erred from the flesh, and pierced themselves through many sorrows. But thou, O man of God, flee these things, and follow the righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. It's all about money. 2 Samuel 2:10. Ashbotheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned for 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. In the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ashbotheth, the son of Saul, went from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, David's sister, and a servant of David went out and met together at the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, one on one side of the pool and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, Let the young men now rise and play before us. And Joab said, Let them arise. Now they arose and went about numbers 12 to Benjamin, which pertained to Abdoeth, and the son of Saul, and 12 to the servant of David. And they caught every one of his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword by his fellow's side, and they fell down together. Wherefore that place was called Hakelim-Harazon, which is in Gibeon. So they had this big battle there because they couldn't agree who was going to be king. So basically 12 men against 12 men fought to see who was going to be king. And there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before the servant of David. And there were 3 sons of Zeruiah there, Joab, Ashni, and Ashniel. And Ashni was light of foot as a wild roe. And Ashniel pursued after Abner, and going and he turned from the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. And Abner looked behind him and said, Art thou Ashiel? And he answered, I am. And Abner said unto him, Turn thee aside from thy right hand or thy left hand, and lay hold on the young man, and take thee his armor. But Ashniel would not turn aside from following him. And Abner said again to Ashniel, Turn thee aside from following me, wherefore I shall smite thee to the ground. How then should I hold up my face to Joab my brother? Howbeit he refused to turn aside, wherefore Abner and the hither end of the spear smote him under the fifth rib, and the spear came out from behind him and fell him down, and he died in the same place. And it was came to pass, as many as came to the place where Abner fell, and died soon. And you can see on the chart here, you can see your heart, those ribs. Where that little red dot is in the bottom of the heart, that's about where he got struck. And Joab also said to Ashni, pursued after Abner, and the sun went down, and they were come to the hill of Ammah, and lieth before Gilead by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. The sunset happens every day. It's a great reminder to let go of all the anger and bitterness of the day and just move on. I mean, look how beautiful these sunsets are. Ephesians 4 says, be ye angry and sin not. Let the sun go down upon your wrath. It's basically saying, don't go to bed angry. This is right here, it says, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. Sometimes we get mad for no reason. Sometimes there's a reason, but we shouldn't go to bed angry. A grudge, it's a noun. It's a pursuant feeling of ill will of resentment resulting from a past injury or insult. When you hold grudges, your hands aren't free to catch a blessing. Joel 2 says, therefore also now say to the Lord, turn ye even to me with your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your heart, not your garments, and turn unto the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and act in great kindness, and repenteth of him this evil. Proverbs 4 says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Matthew 15 says, but those things proceeded out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they deflate the man. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murderers, adulterers, fornication, theft, false witnesses, and blasphemies. Jeremiah 17 says, the heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked, for who can know it? I, the Lord, search thy heart. I try the reins, and even every man according to his ways, and according to the fruit of his doings. It's important to check your heart. Ephesians 4 says, be not angry and sin not, not let the sun go down upon your wrath. 2 Samuel says, 2 Samuel 2:25 says, and the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one troop, and stood on top of a hill. And then Abner called to Joab and said, shall the sword devour for evil? Knowest thou not to be bitterness for the latter end? How long shall it be then, ere thy bound thy people return from following their brethren? Basically, the Green translation is, can we just stop fighting now? And Joab said, as God liveth, unless thou hast spoken, surely then the mourning of the people have gone up every one from following his brother. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more, neither fought that day any more. So basically they agreed, this is silly, why are we fighting? Let's just stop fighting, no more bloodshed. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all of Bithron, and they came to Mahlah. And Joab returned from following Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, they lacked of David's servants 19 men, and Asriel, that's 20 people. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so they had 360 men died. So it was 20 against 360, which was an 18-1 battle. And they took up Ashnel and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron to break of the day. People fight over some of the dumbest things. I was at the chiropractor one time, and he put hot rocks on my back to soften the muscles, and some kids began to fight over the extra bag of rocks on the table. This is some of the stupidest wars in the world. First one's the pastry war. After his Mexico City pastry shop was destroyed by a lawless mob in 1828, a French chef asked the Mexican government to pay for damages, and the request was promptly ignored. So he asked the French government for help instead, but everybody forgot about the request. Well, 10 years later, the incident somehow caught the attention of King Louis Philippe, and demanded the Mexicans to pay this guy among a whopping 90% interest rate. And when they refused, the French blockaded Mexico and occupied the city. The saddest truth behind the pastry war was nobody really cared about the pastry or the shop, except maybe the owner. They only wanted the money. Mexican General Antino Lopez de Santa Anna came out of retirement to fight the French, but even he couldn't help. And the French stayed in Mexico until they agreed to pay. However, it didn't cough up the dough after France pulled out, leading to another French invasion in 1861. But then the French Empire fell and everyone kind of just forgot about it for good. 1 Timothy 6 says, "Perverse disputes of men and corrupting minds and dissolute them with the truth, supposing that the gain is godliness, from such withdraw thyself. But godliness with contempt is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be there content. But there will be rich and fall in temptation or snare, and in many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition." 1 Timothy 6:10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which is so conveyed after they have eroded from the faith and pierced themselves through many sorrows. But thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness." The second war is called the War of Jenkins' Ear. In 1731, a British man named Robert Jenkins was stopped by Spanish authorities and accused of smuggling. The Spaniards seized his entire cargo, and for good measure and for no reason, they cut off his ear. 8 years later, the British were looking for an excuse to force Spain out of the Caribbean and South America, so they launched a war that saw 25,000 dead or wounded and nearly 5,000 ships that were lost, just to avenge an ear. How about number 3, the Opium Wars? The first rule of making money is to find a need and fill it. In the late 1830s, Britain needed Chinese tea, silk, and other products. The only problem was the Chinese didn't really need any British goods, so there was a bit of a trade imbalance. To fix that, the British created a need in China, then probably filled it with opium, and that didn't throw the Chinese at all. It's all about money. You see, China began to use its military to enforce drug laws to stop British smugglers, and to keep Chinese people from getting addicted to opium, to prevent its currency from folding. And the British cried foul after beginning to use the Royal Navy to enforce free trade principles in China. This meant accepting 7,000 tons of opium at gunpoint, as well as opening 5 points to British ships and giving up Hong Kong. It's the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals, maybe ever. No wonder that China's the way that it is. 20,000 people were killed, and it's reported that estimate Chinese lost between 18,000 and 20,000 killed or wounded. What about the War of the Oaken Bucket? While the War of the Oaken Bucket sounds more like a college game day rivalry, it really was a 1325 war between two Italian states, Bologna and Modena. They killed 2,000 people. It was really a proxy war between the supporters of the Holy Roman Empire and the papacy. And before I got too far into detail here, what you really know is that it was started because some Milanese soldiers took a bucket from a Bologna town well. Even dumber is lopsided victory, and the Milanese won in defending that bucket. In the Battle of Zappola, over 32,000 Bolognese marched on 7,000 Milanese, and they were chased from the battlefield. What about the Pig War? This is a war that could have developed into such a large conflict. It makes it even stupider than it sounds. On San Juan Island, between the midland of the United States and Canada's Vancouver Island, was shared by both American settlers and British employers of the Hudson Bay Company. While the island was shared, in practice, both countries had a claim to the Northwest Island and created a ton of tension in the region. Those tensions boiled up in June of 1859 when an American farmer shot a British boar for tearing up its potato crop. Arguments ensued, and the farmer was almost arrested by the British. The U.S. Army got wind of the situation and sent Captain George Pickett with a company of soldiers who promptly declared the island American property. Of course, the British responded by spending its trump card, the Royal Navy. For weeks it appeared the standoff would spark a greater war between the two powers, but cooler heads prevailed and the sides took joint custody of the island. What about the War of the Stray Dog? Another war that exactly what it sounds like, except this one really did cause a lot of deaths, as well as a 1925 fight that saw 20,000 Greek men and 10,000 Bulgarians on the battlefield. The catalyst was a dog that had gotten away from a Greek soldier. The soldier chased it after the dog, but after it ran across a Greek border into Bulgaria, Bulgarian border guards, seeing a Greek soldier running through their territory, of course shot him. The Greeks then began an invasion of Bulgaria, occupying border towns and preparing to take the city of Peniche before the League of Nations intervened, negotiating a ceasefire. It was the Battle of Karadzic when the Australian army fought and defeated it, thanks to alcohol. In September of 1788, the Ottoman army arrived in the town of Constabes after several days struggling to overtake it. They found their enemy, an Austrian, in a state of utter disarray and destruction, after having fired at themselves in the case of mistaken identity in a drunken brawl, and 7,000 men were killed. The Battle of Constabes between drunken Australian cavalrymen and their fellow soldiers allowed the enemies of the Ottomans to overtake the town that they won without a hitch. And it's also the ridiculous things that couples fight about. Should the toilet paper be in the front or in the back? I always think this one's funny. What do you want for dinner? I don't know, you pick. Chinese? Yuck. Pizza? Gross. Mexican? Are you dumb? Well, then what do you want? I don't know, just make a decision. Okay, Italian it is. Ugh, I want to break up. Do I look fat? No, babe, you look great. But why are you lying to me? Heard from the opposite side of the house. Mumble, mumble. What'd you say? Don't you ever listen to me? Or how about the proper way to fold your clothes? Psalms 119 says, Great peace have they which love the law, and nothing shall offend them. Well, guys, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, click the bell, share it on social media, all those fun things. I'm going to put a couple links on the screen. The bottom right is going to be the 2 Samuel Bible study. The top left is going to be the 1 Samuel Bible study. And then the bottom left is going to be a video YouTube thinks you're going to like. Usually that's the previous video, but you never know. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have yourself a great day.